came into the world. Just remember that. So, well, I'm a warm weather guy, so just bring all that stuff on. All right. That's us Florida boys speaking right there is what that is. All right, time to fess up. Time to fess up. How many of you at least one time in the past week went into the newspaper or online to see results of the Olympics? Raise your hand. Hold your hand up. How many of you have watched at least a few minutes of the Olympics? Raise your hand. How many of you watched hours of Olympics? How many of you have lost sleep because of Olympics? Yep. I love them, but it takes me the next 4 years to recover. I'm an Olympic freak about it. I really am. Therefore, it made sense to me for us to, during this time, to see this passage in 1 Corinthians 9. In some research, I think there's a lot of fascinating stuff, a lot of interesting stuff here as it relates to the Olympic Games, and I want us to think about them for just a few minutes. There's a commercial, maybe you have seen it running during the Olympics. Have you seen the one where the question is, or the statement is, that every human being has the chemical gold in their bodies? Have you seen that one? And they gave a figure. I don't remember what it was. It was, very small, 0.02 whatever. I don't know. But that's a fascinating point to me. Every single person has gold in his or her chemical makeup. That commercial to me is outstanding because for a spiritual point, I think it says that every single person has the potential with God to be a gold medal winner. There are no bad people. There are people who do bad things. There is nobody irretrievable. With God, anyone can be retrieved from whatever place they sink to, because you have gold medal possibility circulating in your body chemistry. Now, I like that figure. I like that idea. Now, let's think about it as it relates to these games. 1 Corinthians chapter 9. Do you not know that those who run in a race all run, but one receives the prize? Run in such a way that you may obtain it. Here are the games. Apparently, these games that Paul was speaking about are probably not the Olympic Games that we are familiar with. They were called the Isthmian Games. It was named after the narrow isthmus where the city of Corinth was located. These games had begun in about 586 BC. But through the years, especially when Rome began its conquering, they wiped out the city of Corinth, and it wasn't until 40 A.D. that Corinth got the games back. And so now they have the games back. Anybody know what decade the book of 1 Corinthians was written in? Anybody know? Take a guess. There you go, Mr. Al, in the 60s. So here's Paul in the city of Corinth telling them about the games that had just been going again in Corinth for 20 years. Games. These games were interesting, seems to me. These games required or involved people who had, first of all, to be free men. If you were not a free man and a countryman of the cities of the Roman Empire, you could not compete. These games had a setup where a herald would announce all of the games and announce the names of the participants and the countries from which they come. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? These games allowed the winner to have great honor. The honor, certainly, as he will go on to say, was a physical, perishable thing. But the thing about the games that was so interesting that I found was the victor was able to go home. His whole family was honored because they had sacrificed for him to be the winner. And he went home, and when he did, they broke a hole in the wall of the city for him to walk through, because, as was said by the leaders, you are now a victor. We will protect you and your city. No more do you need the protection of a wall. You fall under our protection. And then every time the games occurred, then, as I read, every 3 years instead of 4, the former winners would come and sit in the seats of honor to watch the renewal of the games they had participated in. Notice this. Do you not know? Everybody's running. One receives the prize. When these games started, there was no silver medal. There was no bronze medal. There was the winner. And that's it. Everybody runs. Everybody competes. But only one gets the prize. He says, therefore, run, that you may obtain. Obviously, Paul is going to tell us that there are things about those games with which they would have been rather familiar that fit well with the concept of the Christian life. It's almost as though we live in the Christian Olympics every day of our lives, competing for the prize. And everyone who competes for the prize is temperate in all things. Now they do it to obtain a perishable crown, but we for an imperishable crown. Therefore I run thus, not with uncertainty. Thus I fight, not as one who beats the air. Paul says, everyone who competes for the prize. I'm going to pronounce the Greek word. I want you to see if you hear our word. Agonizomai. What word do you hear? You hear one? Agonizomai. What is it? Agonize. That's the word. Everyone who agonizes, whoever competes for the prize, this is agony. Yeah, there's great honor. There's a lot of joy, but the agony You think about these in our day, these competitors who for 4 years have prepared for this one. And for the years prior to that, when they were just little, they were continuing even to look down the road. Did you see the picture of Michael Phelps with one of the swimmers on the current team who came to him when he was 12 years old and got a picture taken with Michael Phelps? And then what happened? He's racing with him this year. Isn't that cool? How long have they been preparing for the Olympics? How much sacrifice have they been through to get where they are? Those of us who do any kind of exercise, small or great, is nothing to compare with what they go through getting ready. It is agony. And in doing so, he is temperate in all things. I read about in the Isthmian Games, they had a concentrated period of getting ready for the competition. It was a 10-month process where they concentrated on it, and 30 days prior to the competition, they came to a place and they had to be involved in every single exercise. And part of it was, we're going to tell you what to eat. We're going to tell you how to sleep. We're going to control you. You are going to control yourself to get ready for competition. You're temperate in all things. It was a lifestyle. For the period of time getting ready for and being in that race, it was their life. There's no segments. There was no way of saying, okay, on this day I'm just going to have a free day and I can do whatever I want to do. But no, they were cloistered. They were surrounded. They were controlled. As long as they were in the race and ready, preparing for it. We're in the race every day. We're constantly preparing for the end of that race. Can we then segment our lives and say, this part of my life doesn't affect the spiritual journey? This part of my life, I can do whatever I want to do, but when I'm concentrating on Sunday in the assembly, then I have to be this way. No. Every facet of our lives, temperate in all things. I run thus, not with uncertainty. Apparently the herald, when it came time for the competition, would take the competitor and put his hand over his head and say and announce to the entire crowd, does anyone know whether this man has committed a crime or a misdeed? If so, speak up now. Because they would not be worthy to compete if they were convicted of anything amiss. So the herald would announce, if you know, speak up now. Not with uncertainty. Paul said, I'm in this race and I'm in this competition because I know. The Christian race is about knowing why we are where we are. It's about understanding the life that we have chosen. It's not about checking boxes and then presenting our report card. It is about an understanding of a lifestyle, a deepening of what we know, not just the surface of the facts, not with uncertainty. Thus I fight. Paul refers to two types of the games, the racing and the fighting. He turns now to the boxing idea, not as one who beats the air. You've seen boxers getting ready for a fight, how they will shadow box. And if you see them shadow boxing, and when they box and they move their arms and they're so fast, I mean, you think, wow, that guy's really got it, right? They have never crowned a champion shadow boxer. Not one time. He said, not like one who's beating the air. Not like that. It's not my shadow boxing. I'm actually in the competition. I'm actually fighting. I'm not sitting on the sidelines. I'm involved. Now consider the preparation. Look at verse 27. But I discipline my body and bring it into subjection when I have preached to others. I myself should become disqualified. One version says, I keep under my body. Apparently in the Greek, the better translation is this: I bruise my body. In fact, the word used here is a word that refers to this part of the face, right here, under the eyes. It is the part that the boxers were trained to focus upon on their opponent. Aim for this part right here. You know why? To give him a black eye. That was the sign that you didn't fare very well in the match. So Paul says, literally, he says it this way: I beat myself black and blue. I give myself a black eye. I've been in the struggle. I have agonized over it. And yes, I've paid the price. Admittedly, we don't pay a great physical price here to be Christians. There are places where people do pay great physical price to live the Christian life. Paul certainly understood that. How much persecution did he endure? How about those first century Christians and everything that happened to them? Did they understand what it means to discipline the body and bring it into subjection? I think so. Lest when I have preached to others. Here's what's interesting about this text, this part. Paul puts himself in the competition and as the herald or the announcer announcing the competition. He's the preacher. Not only is he in the competition himself and therefore being on the front line, but he is also the herald whose job is to stand up and talk about the competition, to announce the competition. Lest I myself become disqualified. There were two ways to be disqualified in these games. Did you see the women's, there was a heat match, one of the heats of the women's 100-meter race. And when they got ready to go, they had to stop it because someone left too early. Did you see that? And then they read the rule, the announcer read the rule and said, okay, here's the way the Olympics work. Once someone has jumped too early, the entire group gets a warning, which means the next one who jumps early is thrown out of the competition. So they lined up again. I think this was, now that I think about it, wasn't this a part of the women's heptathlon, I believe, the 100-meter part, or maybe the hurdles part, either way. Here's what she said. When it happened again, another girl jumped. And she was one of the favorites to win. And then all the announcers said, she's finished. That's it. She's out. The competition was told, once one person faults, everybody gets no extra time. The next fault, you're disqualified. The one who ran the race came out with a card and warned everybody again and let her stay in the competition. I think she went on to win. Paul says there's two ways to be disqualified. When the herald puts the hand on the head and said, does anybody know whether he has committed a crime or a misdeed? If somebody says, I do, he's disqualified. And once the race is finished, the herald would say, did he compete fairly? Judge, did he compete fairly? I don't remember what year it was. But a number of years ago in the Olympics, in the marathon, you remember the one where all of a sudden a man appeared in the stadium running and nobody knew who he was. He had started and he took a shortcut and he came in the race in the stadium before everyone else. And the guy who was ahead, when he came in the stadium, he couldn't figure it out. What's happening here? Well, this guy cheated. And the herald would say, did he compete fairly or did he cheat? And if all the judges say it was fair, now the herald will say, he is the victor. Give him the crown. I think, like I said, I thoroughly enjoy the Olympics. But there's much more going on there that fascinates me. And especially as you dwell on it and think about it as it relates to the spiritual journey. The Christian Olympics. Everyone's invited to participate. You have a choice and a chance. It's not going to be easy. In fact, oftentimes it's agony. Because there's that struggle, that competition going on inside of you. Warring against the soul, the things of God and the things of Satan. But you stay the course. There will be people in the competition with you who will let you down. They will mistreat you. They will abuse you. But you just keep going. There will be people who have laughed and mocked at the competition. And they'll be asking you, why are you doing all this? It doesn't make any sense. Come on over here. You're straining and stressing and we're having fun. Come hang out with us. And you stay the course. And then one day, we're going to die. Unless Jesus returns before that. And then the herald will announce, the end is here. The trumpet will sound. And the herald will say to those on the right hand, come, you blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. You get your crown. The final reward of the Christian Olympics. But you got to compete lawfully and faithfully. Don't cheat. Don't short circuit. Tonight, if you're not in the competition, you're missing out on the greatest life that there is. But if you're in the competition and you've begun to cheat, why not change? Tonight, let the figure of the Olympics be a motivation for you to think about your life, to be what you need to be. Tonight, can we help you with something in your Christian competition? If you let us know as we stand and sing together.